Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life. Guys, I have a special guest in the studio today, Miss Amanda Holbrook of Specialized Trust. She is a partner that we work with when we have an investor that wants to put into one of our deals, whether that be a real estate deal or into our debt fund. And what they do is they help people unlock IRA capital, 401k capital, and allow the investor to self-direct those funds. So I wanted to talk about the ins and outs. A lot of people aren't even aware that this is something that they can do. So Amanda, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being on with me.
Thank you, Jennings. I appreciate you having me. And hello, everybody. Nice to meet you.
So let's say I worked for, IBM, whatever, 20 years ago, and 10 years ago, I left IBM and they set me up with a 401k or an IRA, and I haven't been contributing, but maybe there's $50,000, $100,000 in there, but it's locked up with Fidelity or Schwab or whatever, and it's not really performing too well. I don't know what to do with it or if I can do anything with it. What do you guys do in a situation like that?
Absolutely. So right there, that leaving of the employer, that's your green light, guys. So if you're looking at your own portfolio and it is a old retirement account, doesn't have to be 10 years ago. It could be yesterday. If you're no longer employed there, or if you are employed there and you're 59 and a half, you have the ability to move those funds, right, into what you want, right? So kind of to piggyback, Jennings, what you're talking about there, like those big box games that you just named, they may keep you in a 401k, they may put you in what they call a rollover IRA, but you're still stuck with just stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and it's like, hey, but you can pick them yourself. But that's not true self-direction, right? True self-direction is what we do here at Specialized, so same types of accounts, IRAs, 401ks, yada, yada, yada. But then you move them over here, and that's what myself, our team does, which is super simple to do. But now once you're here on a truly self-directed platform, Pandora's box is open for you, so you are no longer stuck with just stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Let's buy, hold, open, pray. It's there, now, especially if you change jobs, you're already going through a transition. If you can get it into something that is tangible or tangibly backed, is that diversification? Might that make financial sense? Absolutely. So you're not, the things that we see, if I may, like we don't recommend or endorse any safe investment as a sponsor, blah, 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 blah. That fun disclaimer. They make me do that, Jennings. I'm sorry, legal. But, invest in what it's been around since the 70s, so real estate, lending, land, gold, whatever that might be for you and your family, like you can do that inside of the account. Like that's the magic of self-direction.
But there are some specific rules, right? Because if somebody thinks, well, I want to pull it out of the IRA and I want to go buy a piece of land, or I want to invest in a real estate deal, or I want to go into a debt fund, if they liquidate that IRA, get the cash, they're going to be hit with, a 10% penalty plus have to pay taxes on the increase, right?
Yes. Yeah. If you're taking it out before 59 and a half, you are just giving Uncle Sam a big chunk of your nest egg, where, you don't have to do that. Now I do, since we're talking about the rules, when it's here in the self-directed account, it has to be investment purposes only, so for any of you Airbnbers out there listening that I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy this great beachfront rental property and my family and I are only going to stay there a month out of the year. No. You cannot personally use it. You can't lend it to yourself. You can't lend it up and down on the family tree. And there's some black and white stuff that you and I probably never would run into, but like artwork, collectibles, S Corps, insurance products, outside of that, get creative, but it's investment purposes, guys.
Right. So if you wanted to let's say you wanted to make a private loan on a promissory note to someone, or put, a mortgage on someone's house, you could do that with this product. If you wanted to do a joint venture to go out and buy an apartment complex, you could do something like that. So what Specialized Trust does is they're the custodian, right? So right now, whoever holds your IRA funds is the custodian. You can't have those funds or you're going to get taxed. And so they transfer that over to Specialized Trust, who becomes the new custodian. And they send the money to whoever you're investing with. And then when you get payments or repayment of your principal, it also flows back through Specialized Trust to keep those IRA laws or 401k laws intact so that you don't get hit with those penalties and taxes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So just to like reiterate that, though, when those, mortgage payments, if you're the lender, and the interest and the points are going back, or, your rental cash flow, your equity split is going back to that account, it's all growing tax sheltered. And if it's a Roth, either Roth portion of a 401k or Roth IRA, it's growing tax free. Yeah. Best kind. All right. Yeah. So that's the big aha moment I want everyone to take away. Like you're looking at your account and everything that's going on in the world that you can't control. And you're like, oh man, I should really change this up into something that isn't going to be affected by all the things that you can't control. Like this is the vehicle, guys. The IRS says you have to diversify per the IRS. Okay. So if you want to take those tax sheltered funds, not get whacked, but still invest them, in things just like you said, Jennings, like being the bank or an equity deal or commercial property, we're the platform the IRS says that you have to have, that's the key piece. You are the boss, baby. Like, even though they're retirement accounts, you are the boss. Right? I need to make this a song.
Well, and when I was first learning about this product about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it seemed really complicated to me. And I was like, oh man, I don't even know if I want to take IRA money from investors because this is going to be a huge hassle. It's going to be a pain. But then an investor came to me and said, hey, I want to put $100,000 in your deal, but it's through my IRA. And I was like, okay, well, I got to figure that out now. And, and the first experience I went through was a different custodian company. And it was a huge pain in the butt. Like I couldn't get a hold of anybody. Everybody I talked to was a different person. Every time I talked to somebody, they seemed to be getting fired the next week. And now I had to talk to a new rep. And it would take weeks and weeks and weeks to get this deal funded. Whereas, a regular investor, they just wired in the money and it was pretty easy. And then I met Specialized Trust, and it was like, hey, we have white glove service. Here's Amanda Holbrook. She's going to be your client rep, and you're going to talk to Amanda. And it was amazing. Amanda contacted the other IRA company. She got the funds transferred over. She told me the forms I needed to fill out. If I made a mistake, she could walk me through how to correct that. When we sent in, the request for the money, they wired it over the next day. It was great. It was a much simpler and easier process to deal with Specialized Trust versus other trust companies. I'm not going to throw any shade, but I'm just saying.
No, and we appreciate that. And I mean, there's definitely no I in team, but there is a me. So thank you for that. But yeah, I've heard that story time and time and again. And if you're listening, you may have had that experience. I like to say we picked the easy button. What is that? The Staples thing, easy button. It's easy, guys. It's literally, hey, if you decide deposit direct, that's it. If you can do better, you just got to open an account, fund it, find a deal. And then it's all of this decide deposit direct. It's just paperwork. And guess what? We do majority of it. And you have a rock star team too that helps with the titling and all of that. So the key piece here is, just like when you're forming, a business or, your financial professional, a vendor squad, you just got to have the right butts in the right seats, is just key in so many categories of life, but especially investing.
Well, and the butt's got to stay there. You don't want to get with a company that's a revolving door of personnel, which is how a lot of these huge companies operate. It's like every time you call in, you're talking to a new person. So Yeah, I want to walk through the listeners like a real life case study of an investor. This is a guy we were talking about offline because he's done this 3 or 4 times with you guys, and I think the first deal he did with me was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he put in $100,000. Within 2 years, we had stabilized the property and refinanced it. Right, so the refinance proceeds were it was great. It was a burr. Like we got all the investors' cash back out, and so instead of wiring him his $100,000, we wired it to Specialized Trust. But he goes on his portal and he sees, okay, my money's back in there, and that's great, but it's not earning anymore. And so then we placed him into a New York City hotel that we did. So I called him up. I said, hey, we got this hotel. It's a promissory note type investment. It pays 13%. And he looked at it and said, okay, yes, that sounds good. And same situation. So that investment paid quarterly returns. And and every quarter we're sending the check right to Specialized Trust, but he's seeing his account grow. On top of that, we're selling the Tulsa property and he got his share of that. And when I sold Tulsa, I got destroyed with taxes. I mean, I'm happy that I sold it. I'm happy that we made good money on that deal, but the tax bill of all that recaptured depreciation was massive. And I've started leaning more into the IRA products and the 401k products because of that tax shelter. Because you think as a real estate guy, well, I don't really need to worry about taxes because I'm always going to be, buying stuff and getting depreciation. But, there are some years that you don't buy stuff, and there's some years that you sell stuff and you don't buy stuff, and then you just get kind of hammered with those taxes, and that a problem is mitigated. So the gentleman, a lot of my other investors were like, "Oh man, we made all this money, but now we're having to pay taxes." And I never got that call from him because it was going right back into the IRA. And so he was thrilled. And so now we're selling, or the promissory note on the New York deal is getting paid off the end of this month. And so the 100,000 plus all his interest is washing back into the account. And so we're now rolling him into our first position debt fund. The debt fund pays 8%. It pays monthly, and he's letting his distributions compound inside the fund, but he could take them every month. So same thing. If he wanted to take those distributions, we got to send them directly to the Specialized Trust. He's allowing them to compound, but he's keeping his IRA working over the last 5 years. And I don't know the math because I don't have access to his portal, but the returns that he's made over those 5 years are far better than he was doing, in his old IRA that he had that was collecting dust. So it's been a really, really good product. And he's just one of dozens of investors that I've pushed through Specialized Trust that have invested in our deals. So I wanted to explain to you how this works, to not be afraid of it, that it's not as complicated as you think, and their reps can walk you through that portion because you do have some work to do on your side to make the investor understand it, make it easy for them, but they really do make it as easy as they can for the operator and the investor.
Yeah. And I mean, and kudos to you. And if you're an investor and an operator listening to this, I think the key thing that you're not saying is you've built such a relationship, with your investors, IRA and non, but especially IRA, that, I want you to keep that money working, right? It's very much, thank you, come again, but it's like, hey, do you have another one? Can you just keep this in there? And that's where, I know he was very excited, on the debt fund piece, it just goes back in there and keeps compounding, but that's key, right there. And did you have to go in every single deal and then find a whole new set of investors and a whole new set of investors? No, as those turn over, you've built such a relationship and rapport, and the communication, and yes, the profit checks obviously are a big piece of that, but that's huge. And the simplicity of it, guys. I mean, if that is literally your mental hurdle in today's day and age, you have to just get over that. It is very simple. Okay, do you know your name? Do you know your address? Can you pull a statement? And can you take a picture of your driver's license? Like, and I know some that are like, well, I'm tech challenged. No, man, like if you know those things, you can do this. Like that's literally, the acumen that you have to have. The big piece of it, I call it, what we do is the logistical part. We open the account, we fund the account, and we do the deal. But it's the relationships that you make with those others, because we get that question a lot. It's like, well, where do we put the money? And it's like, that's where your network is your net worth. Like that is where, it's not just picking off a screen. You have to talk to people and form those relationships and build that relationship capital and trust. Absolutely. Absolutely. But those buckets, for those years, Jennings, where you're getting whacked in taxes, it's developed the proactive approach, guys, is when most think retirement accounts, they think, oh, I have an IRA or I have a 401k, but they might be married. They have a business. They might have kids. They might have a high deductible health plan. They can do a solo 401k. They can pay their children. They put money into Roth IRAs. You can do an HSA. Like we're in the double dip window right now. You can still put in for last year and this year. But when you start adding those buckets up, some of you may be thinking like, oh, well, I can only put 7,500 or 8,600 in an IRA as far as contributions. But when you start adding multiple buckets, that gets in the six figures very quickly, especially if you're self-employed and an entrepreneur.
Yeah. My brother-in-law, who's a financial advisor, he convinced me many moons ago to do a solo 401k through my construction company. And, I was like, whatever. And I did it. But, I don't even remember putting money into it, but it's grown, to a fairly significant portion of money now. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad I did that. And now I'm consistently investing into the stock market, which is something that I never really did. I was just like, just real estate only. But it is a good diversification piece. What I like about it is the liquidity aspect of it. This is just a regular brokerage account. It doesn't have the thing. But if you're self-employed or a real estate guy, like you never know when your next deal is going to come up. And that's what's nice about these self-directed IRAs is you can still utilize that money for your down payment or whatever you need with that deal, as long as you keep that, curtain of separation. But, and I want to talk about, you may not be familiar with this, but on the operational side, the psychological barrier of someone investing with their IRA versus cash is way different. And I didn't realize that when I first started. Because you think about it. If I come to you, Amanda, and I say, hey, do you want to put $100,000 into this deal or this debt fund or whatever? Well, if you're investing with cash, you're looking at, okay, I got $100,000 into stocks that I actively manage, or I've got $100,000 in a money market account or whatever. And if I lock that up, I'm not going to have access to it, and I'm not going to have this $100,000 in my bank account anymore, which I kind of like looking at. And versus, hey, what about your IRA? Oh yeah, I've got $100,000 sitting in there. It's not doing much. I'm not happy with the performance. I can make 8% here. I can make 10, 12, 15, whatever the deal is offering. And it doesn't hurt, right? Because that money was already locked. It wasn't really in their bank account. I mean, it's theirs, but it's not something that they look at as a cushion,
Right.
And so I just noticed that investing with an IRA versus another vehicle, like for example, we're doing a flex warehouse development, and one of the investors in my prior deal, he got paid back, and I said, hey, do you want to do this? And he's like, oh, no, I kind of need that money right now. And I was like, well, do you have an IRA? He said, oh yeah. I said, well, would you want to invest through that? He said, oh, I can do that. And he said, oh yeah, sure, I'm in. Put me down for $100,000. And it was like a way different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easier conversation. Most think like it's their mind hurdle of like, if you lead with like, oh, a self-directed retirement account, like it's complicated, and it's not. What you just listed is it's tomorrow money, right? It's delayed. I live in delayed gratification world here. Okay. This is all tomorrow money, and especially with uncertain times, they may need that cash or their kids going to college, whatever it might be, but for that tomorrow money, it's literally the, hey, did you know? Just like this guy, the, hey, did you know conversation. And it's much easier. It's much easier because you don't need that capital today. All right. So it's a diversification play. That's all it is. I'll tell you the one I hear, and this frustrates me. So I want you guys all to listen. Okay. Especially when the market is doing good. Okay. Because it ebbs and flows, right? Okay. So if the market's doing good, what is somebody going to say? Oh, well, I've got, this stock or this, whatever it is, and it's beating that percentage. Like, I'm going to wait. I want to wait. What is the cardinal rule of a stock portfolio? I don't even know who coined this phrase, but what would Warren Buffett tell you? You buy what? You buy?
Buy when it's cheap.
Yes. And you sell when?
High. Yes.
So for those of you that are sitting there trying to time the market, ask someone that's tried to do that before and ask them how it turned out for them. You definitely see more tears than you do smiles. So that is the time when you do diversify. And I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, but that is the time when you start peeling off chunks to diversify in something that is tangible, stable, consistent compounding. That isn't always tied to the stock market. Right. Like that's the key, I will say the one for the investor that hasn't experienced the waves yet. I've definitely had a couple of these conversations over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, look, like, obviously it's a matter of, not if it makes sense, it's just when. That's self-directed world 101. Like it's always going to make sense to put something other than stocks, bonds, mutual funds into your portfolio. And we will gladly do that. But you really need to have that self-awareness conversation. Like before we hopped online here, we were talking about shiny object syndrome, but there is a time to diversify, be real with yourself and see if something were to happen that you can't control, what's your financial scenario looking like? And COVID's a great example that was not that long ago, for most that had a very big impact. So please take a look at that, especially if you're one that's like, ooh, it went up. Okay, great. Like take your chunk and run. Right.
Yeah.
You can do partial transfers. That's, I guess, what I was trying to say. Go ahead.
Well, I think something that people really underestimate is the role that volatility plays in stock investing, right? Like we've all heard the term, okay, the stock market has averaged, 9%, 10% over the last 50 years. And that's true. But one, that's not less the advisor fees, which are typically, 1% or so. And then that's also not including like that's not the actual result, right? That's the average result. And it depends on, if you are making investments when the market is high, and then in the first year or two of your journey, the market pulls back, your average returns or your actual returns are going to be far less than, 9, 10%.
Correct.
And because it's like, if you think the way that the market reports, it's like if you put $100,000 into stocks and it pulls back 10%, you have $90,000. If it goes up 10%, they report, okay, you broke even. You're at 0%. You went down 10%. You went up 10%. But your actual balance is 99,000, right? You had 90,000. Yep. It went up 10%. Now you have 99,000. You don't have 100,000 anymore. And so even though the way they report it, you didn't lose any money, in actual dollars, you lost $1,000. You lost 1%. And so I modeled this in ChatGPT. I said, if I have $100,000 over 20 years, invest in the stock market with the average volatility, what's my actual return? And they can't tell me. So they ran 1,000 simulations. And you know what the average was? What the actual return was like 5.6%. It wasn't 9-10%. And when you model the same thing like our debt fund product that returns 8%, 8%, 8%. And if you're compounding your distributions, it's actually returning 8.3% APY. It's going to beat that 9 or 10 number in a, it depends on what you invest in, but I would assume a safer, more stable product is first position loans. And so that's what really started to make me think like, yes, this is not an anti-stock bashing podcast, but there's a place for diversification, like you were talking about. I have another client who has a ton of money all in an ETF, right? And it's double leverage on the NASDAQ 100. And it has performed phenomenally over the last 7 to 10 years. I mean, his returns are amazing. And there's no denying it. But when I pull the data on the lifetime performance of the ETF, which has been around for about 20 years, guess what it is? 6%.
6. Okay. I was like, is it going lower? But still, that's, yeah.
But because of
the math doesn't lie.
But the man has made 15 to 20% a year for a decade. So he's winning. But I'm like, hey, I get that you're winning, but you're in a double leverage ETF on all these high tech stocks. Like you're also in your 70s. Like you gotta think about like, is this the right product for you to be in? And he's like, well, I think AI is going to blow up, so I'm just going to stay there. And I said, okay, fine. He's a risk taker, and if it goes to zero, he'll be all right. But I think that people don't understand how much volatility can kill returns. Where that whipsawing of the market versus a steady return in a real estate deal. But the drawback with real estate is doesn't have liquidity. That is a big deal breaker. Like if you're 3 years into a deal and you want your money out, it's very difficult to do that. And that's why I have the fund product where there's $137 million collectively in that fund, diversified over 350 to 400 loans at a time. And there's $12 to $14 million a month of loans paying off. And so if somebody wants to pull $100,000 out, it's fine. We can do that. And so I like that aspect of a steady, stable return with liquidity. It's hard to find something like that.
Yeah. And that's like, for your guy that's like in his 70s, like, yeah, I know he's kind of sitting pretty, he's a happy camper where he's at. But if you're listening to this and, RMD has creeped into the conversation, that's required minimum distribution. For those of you who don't know the acronym, there's an age with tax deferred accounts, they start making you take it out. Something like that works very seamlessly. Because if you're taking it out of that account, and that's the same thing too, if, the 21 all over again, I say all the time, it's 59 and a half, which as young as I feel, I'm like, dang, that's like around the corner, and there's ways you can access it sooner. We won't get into that today, but, like that's the age where it's like, okay, you definitely want less volatility, and more consistent, predictable monthly returns. So that's where diversification, every year you inch further, you should be really taking this volatility, like this should be like, higher up on the priority scale. And that's something, I'll get to it next year. I'll get to it when I, file my taxes, or, just kicking that, kicking it down the road, and like, do it now. I mean, these are things that grow over time. So diversify something. I mean, I think the other, PSA too, especially for those of you that are like just getting started in the market, or, with adulting or starting your business, however you want to put it. I don't want to just put market, there's, the saying of like, pay yourself first. when I say buckets, I'm meaning accounts. Make sure you are saving money in a tax-free account. Like if you have money saved, and even for your kids too, but like just sitting in a savings account, not earning anything, you can have that money in a Roth. All of the earnings are going tax-free, and you can still take out the contributions at any time, tax-free, penalty-free. And that's huge, especially for our littles. I mean, if that's one thing as a mom, I can stress to all of you guys, get Roth funds growing under their names ASAP. It's not hard to figure out how to get a minor earned income. They have earned income, heartbeat, social security number. They can have one. And then you can, some of you already might be doing the math. And Jennings says, as far as like, well, if you can only put in $7,500 a year and I could put $7,000 for last year, that's $14,500. I can't do a whole deal with that, but you can partner them together with other funds, other accounts, or outside cash, to get to that dollar amount. Because, investing, and we've been talking a lot about you, but it is definitely a family sport. There's a generational component to it we didn't even scratch today. So once you start getting your gears turning in that fashion, and then listen to what we said about diversification in those vehicles, fun stuff, right?
Yeah. No, and I want to ask your opinion on this, because this is something that I have been talking over with my wife. We have 4 children, ages 6 to 14 or 13. And we want to do some sort of savings account for our kids, some sort of investment account. And the options I'm looking at right now are a UGMA account, and then the other option would be like a minor Roth IRA account. And that's kind of like what I've whittled it down to. So a UGMA account, for people that aren't familiar, it's basically like just a brokerage account for your child. Once they turn 18, they have access to the money with no penalties. They can continue to save and grow it, or they can go buy a Corvette with it. It's their money. The Roth minor, same thing. They get control of it when they're 18, but if they pull that money out, they're going to get taxed and penalized, et cetera. So they're kind of more incentivized to leave that in there. And my financial advisor was saying, if the child is actually contributing their earned income to it, they're going to be a lot more apt to leave it in there and let it grow versus pull it out to go buy, the motorcycle, which we don't want as parents. But
correct.
I kind of like the UGMA that they can pull it out. But something that I didn't realize, I'll just confess my own ignorance here. With IRAs, what you contribute, you can pull out tax-free. I didn't realize that. Yeah. I thought once it went in there, like it was gone, but you can actually pull it out tax-free. And so that's kind of factoring into my thinking. So what would you do in that situation for your child, a UGMA or a Roth for a minor?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and mine are 13 and 9. So we do the Roth IRA first, but we also have some going into UGMA too, but first and foremost, if you're starting with one or the other, because I like the other one to teach them when they're starting to earn, not from what you're paying them in the business, but on their own. So you can teach them the market. But the self-directed Roth by far is huge. Because here's the other thing that I'm going to throw some wrenches in this, that you're going to love. No, I shouldn't call them wrenches. I guess bonuses. So yes, it's the Roth IRA. You could take out the contributions at any time. The earnings have to stay. So it's like a built-in Dumas clause, if you know what I mean by that, Yeah. Okay. So even if they got around you when they're 18 and they can't get their hands on all of it, 2, they can use it for a down payment on their first home, up to 10%. So if you're teaching them house hacking, or if they do go to a university, and they put money down on a quad, Fannie Mae will do up to 4 doors, now they're using that tax-free money, but they're getting a depreciable cash flowing asset, which will also help them get out of mommy and daddy's wallets, right? Sooner, right. And it's building them, instead of just college debt, cash producing asset. Like the numbers on that pencil out beautifully. Another exception is you can use it for tuition too. That's another exception to the code. I have a lot of parents will come to me and say, do I do the Coverdell educational savings account? I don't know if my kids are really going to go to college or if they're going to be an entrepreneur like me, and that's a crystal ball for all of us. We don't know what our kids are going to do. I would never poo-poo an education account. I just set up a family, they homeschool their kids. So that's really helping them out. But they are, they're all in real estate. Hands down. So yeah, that Roth IRA for kids, that came out in the late 90s. It has not been around forever, but I think that's going to be our generation of trust fund babies that have figured out, because you play with, get on ChatGPT and play with some compounding interest models and that bad boy. You're like, you can put very little in, but because it has so much time to grow, if they do really treat it like a retirement account the whole time, they're millionaires by the time they're retirement age.
So,
and it can be really crappy.
I actually ran the numbers this morning with my wife as we're talking.
Did you?
About this. And I said, babe, if we put $5,000 into this minor Roth account, and Jennings, my son, I was like, if he puts $100 a month into this thing and never increases it, like even when he's 30 and 40 and 50, like he just puts $100 a month auto draft into this thing, that's $3.5 million when he's 65 from a $5,000 seed. I said, okay, let's take Sophie, my daughter. She's 6. We put $5,000 in the account. Let's say she never puts anything in it ever. It grows to $1.8 million by the time she's 65. And it was like, wow, I could give my daughter $5,000, and when she's 65 years old, it turns into $1.8 million. That's pretty good.
Talk about putting a gold star in like your dad of the year chart.
Yeah.
Like, where's my trophy? Where's my trophy?
She better go with some flowers on my grave or something. But yeah, so you would definitely think the Roth might be a better choice than the UGMA, or at least have that as part of it. Maybe the first step.
Yeah, because the thing in a Roth too, when you do a self-directed Roth, you can structure it so that you can do real estate and traditional stuff as well. Within the self-directed arena, it's, just like within real estate and everything else, it's creative deal structure. You can have your cake and eat it too. It's just, going back to, investing in what you know and what you can control. And especially for your kids, that's, stability long-term. That's what you want to see compounding for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's useful to know. And I think even I was looking in my portal, there were 2 accounts, and I was like, I don't even know what this is. Like I there's 10,000 in each one. I don't know what they are. So I call my investment advisor. He's like, oh yeah, I set you up on those like 10 years ago. I think they're like life insurance policies for your kids, like cash value. So he's like, you don't need those anymore. Like you should put that into something better. And I think it's important to like clean that up. But I want to train my children to just consistently save, right? And so if it's not easy to invest $100 a month into real estate or $200 a month into real estate, right? But if you do that and it grows into a significant amount of money, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million, whatever, now you can do some sort of real estate deal or whatever you want to do. And you've built that muscle of every month, every 2 weeks, whatever, I save $500, I save $100, $1,000, and you think it's, but those little pennies, those little drips, they add up and they compound. Warren Buffett, 99% of his wealth was created after the age of 50. It's like he built that snowball and that flywheel that really just exploded in the later half of his life through compounding interest. And I remember being in my 20s. And my dad, he never really was into the stock market. He's like, oh, I'll just do real estate. And so I never did that. And now I'm like, I'm doing it. But I'm like, man, I wish I had, when I was 19, 20, I could have put $100 away. I could have done something to get this muscle going and make it happen. So, My retirement plan is paying off these apartment complexes and selling them, or letting them cash flow. But I also want to have this bucket settled.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's any great portfolio that you look at is a mix, guys. I mean, that's the key here. It's a mix. It's not all just, hey, put it all in red, put it all in black. It's a diversification mix. And it's a tax environment mix. That's the other big piece. You have to learn how to keep more of what you make. And stop giving less to Uncle Sam. So like my younger entrepreneurs out there, and you're talking about, getting them disciplined in, junior high, grade school, high school of putting $100 away a month. Like if you're in your 20s and you're not doing that yet, you should. You should at least be doing that. You pay yourself first and make it automated. Any money book that you've ever read will tell you that exact same thing, and you will have more to work with. It's not setting up those accounts when it's like, oh, hey, I crushed it. Now I have this big tax bill. What do I do now? It is so much easier to be proactive than reactive. I love you all that call me the week of tax deadline, though. I love you too. But
I have a story exactly what you're talking about. This was maybe 10 years ago, and I met with a financial advisor, and they set me up on an auto saving thing, and it was $1,000 a month. And I didn't know what to put it in with stock, so I just said, just put it in a money market, and it just was making cash, so making nothing. But every 2 to 3 years, I had $24,000 to $36,000 sitting in this account that really hadn't hurt me to save. And that's how I bought my first rental property. That's how I bought my second rental property. That's how I bought some of the mobile homes that I bought, was like just this automatic savings. And that got me started in my, real estate journey. And that's why I still do it today. It's like, a couple $1,000s a month gets invested in the stock market. It just gets pulled from the account. And, as it stacks up, I can look at like, okay, do I want to move it around somewhere here or there? But yeah, that making it a process, even if it's only $200 a month, $500 a month, whatever, like you can afford it. You can go out to Buffalo Wild Wings one last time this month and do that. So.
That's exactly it. Self-discipline, like everything else, like what you focus on, you find. I mean, how many times do you hear it's just like, oh, I want to be rich, or I want to have X amount of doors and but you don't want to do the work. They want like the shortcut. And it's like, yeah, it sounds boring and it's, long term, but those, good habits, they do compound, and it totally relates to retirement accounts. I mean, hands down. I mean, I've got story after story of folks that, exactly what you were saying, you're able to buy, your first rentals, et cetera. That works outside your retirement account. Guess what, guys? That same strategy you can mirror inside. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. And I think that's where that line or that connection is broken. Like it's not automatically thinking that way. So yeah. No, this has been good stuff. I love it.
So one of the things that I absolutely love, going back to like automated savings about real estate, is a mortgage payment, right? I have a spreadsheet that I keep, and it's called amortizing debt. And it has all the loans that I have, and it has the interest I'm paying, and then it has the principal that I'm paying down. And I hate interest-only loans. I know in syndicator world, everybody wants to get IO loans and juice the cash flow, et cetera. But the cash flow, it gets eaten up, right? It goes back into the property, repairs, maintenance, et cetera. And you got to have the cash flow. But like when you have a loan and it pencils with an amortizing loan, like when you have a deal that pencils with an amortizing loan, and you're paying down $1,000, $5,000. I mean, some of my loans, they're going down by, $10 or more $1,000 a month in principal. It's like that is a forced automatic savings every month that I don't feel at all, but it's real money and it's really there. And it's just killing that debt down and down and down. And when I look up in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that $4 million balance is down to, $1.5 million. And it's incredible because it didn't really hurt. Like it would hurt to save $10,000 a month and just push that over. Like some people can do that and you can do that, but to have it automatically amortizing 5, 10, 50. I mean, I know colleagues that are amortizing, millions of dollars a year in debt, right? Which is going right to their bottom line and net worth. So,
yep. And like what you just said right there, that's an accelerated leveraging strategy. So when you do that in a retirement account, you don't even have the temptation of taking that extra cash and going and putting it somewhere else, right? It's stuck in the retirement account. It's not like, hey, we're going to take the family to, Europe this year. It's stuck in the retirement account, So if you can accelerate that pay down and your properties, and then depending on what you're buying, will be free and clear in a fraction of the time. But then guess what? Once they're free and clear, can you do cash out refi, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat? Absolutely. Think of Monopoly, guys. Like that's exactly what it is. It's just playing Monopoly. But I love that, you have to, it said, do you make like the fun calculator and all that, Jennings?
Oh yeah.
You're a spreadsheet guy. I already know this. But, okay. Oh yeah.
But so much of it, it's not math. It's controlling and understanding human behavior. Just like you said, if it's not locked up, oh yeah, babe, let's go to Cancun. We can do this. Let's get the luxury 5-star hotel. We got the money. Versus the discipline of, yes, I could get the money if I went through this gate and I asked my IRA and I needed to pull a withdrawal and I paid the penalties and that. I don't want to do that. I'd rather just let it keep building. And so you do, because you've made it easy to be disciplined. Right. And that's what I think a retirement account, an IRA, it just makes it so much easier to be disciplined. Amortizing debt versus an IO loan, it just makes it easier to be disciplined. Because that additional cash flow,
110% agree.
You're going to spend it. So,
yep. Even though you're like, oh no, I don't need it. Well, you're right. It's human behavior. It's like, well, I could.
Mama wants
temptation, right?
A new Louis Vuitton purse, So,
Good deal. Good deal. Well, what nuggets have we not covered? That's what I was just going to say. What are our things that we didn't hit today? This has been a great conversation, by the way. So I appreciate you organizing.
Yeah, no, I think we've hit it all except for if people want to learn about self-directed IRAs, what's a good resource to find out about specialized trust and learn how these things work?
Yeah, absolutely. Check our website out, specializedtrustcompany.com, and reach out to me. We do tons of education content. My best is just let's hop on a phone call. Everybody's situation is different. That's I'm old school. Like, hey, you could read and watch videos all day long. Like, let's hop on a call. So I'll put my contact info in the show notes here. But aHolbrook at IRASTC.com. 505-514-0587. You got me directly. So happy to help get you diversified, open that self-directed account and scale, baby.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. Well, Amanda, thanks for joining us today. And I know everybody's gotten a lot of value from this and got the wheels spinning. So appreciate you.
All right. Right back at you. Bye, everybody.